You're listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, giving you weekly sports analysis, opinions, and discussion. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and J-Raff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 149th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, alongside of me, co-host J-Raff.
Yeah, it's good to be back. You know, we're kind of nearing the end of September here, and football's kind of getting in full swing now. And seeing some of these things unfold and getting a look at, how things may kind of work themselves out over the next couple months is kind of slowly becoming a little more clear.
Yeah, even though we're in the middle of week 3 in the NFL action here, I tend to think that we don't know more often than not what a true team is or how they're going to fare this year until after week 4.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to that point.
Right.
And I know last week, there were teams that in week 1, and for instance, my Dolphins beat the Patriots, which everyone was all hyped up about, and then last week they laid an egg against the Bills, and they look awful today again against Kansas City. So you can't overreact on 1 week. You can't overreact on 2, even 3 weeks.
Right.
Generally, after week 4 and week 5, when you're a quarter of the way through the season, the regular season at least, you tend to know who you're going to be. And so next week at this time, we'll definitely have kind of a better grasp on who the contenders for the second season are going to be. There's not a lot you can say tonight, but we're going to go over the slate of games in addition to quick talks or quick hits on the Wilson and Penn State games as well.
Yeah, so plenty of football to talk about, and we will touch on again all of the games that happened today, and also most of the teams that most of our listeners care most about.
Yeah, and there were again, I don't know. Week 1 kind of was a great start to the season in that the games were incredible. It was really a great slate of games. There was a lot of close games going down to the wire, a couple overtime games. This week, again, like last week, not a lot of interesting action. I know Raiders-Patriots was probably more interesting than people thought. Ravens-Browns was another good one. Cowboys-Rams. Redskins, Eagles. So this week was better than week 2, but still not up to the par of week 1. Of course, this week didn't get off on a good note with the drubbing on Thursday night, which we'll talk about briefly here in a few minutes. But the later games are much closer than the first half of the games today, and we only have 3 going on right now. But all of them are 2 of the 3 are within a touchdown and a conversion. Whereas the defending champion Seahawks are up by 2 scores on the Broncos. But we'll go into more in depth on those in a little bit here. First, I know last week we didn't even get to point out the contact info, so if anyone wanted to contact us this week, they had to remember it. So before we get too far in, I think we'll go ahead and throw out that information, and I'll let Justin start you out with that.
Yeah, we'd love to have your take on any of the games or teams or any of the topics we touched on tonight. If you want to call into the show, that's a great way to get in touch with us. You can call the Mays Sandwich Shop hotline at 530-563-6297. Again, 530-563-6297. You can also email the show using the Mays Sandwich Shop inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. Again, joemaysandjraff@gmail.com.
We also have a variety of social media ways that you can interact and contact the show. Facebook, fan page on there. Twitter, the handle's at Joe Mays and J-Raff. And we have both those up. We're monitoring them during each episode. So if you want to contact us through that way, you can. Again, Facebook and Twitter in addition to the phone and email. All right, so topic again, we're all about football here in the fall. Up first, we'll start at the local high school level and talk quickly about Wilson week 4 for them. They remain unscathed, unbeaten, 4-0. They defeated Lancaster-Lebanon foe Lancaster McCaskey 46-6. It should have been worse. Wilson could have easily scored more. And if you read the Red and Eagle article, Coach Doms was not pleased with the team's performance in the first half. And essentially the same thing I mentioned at times, going through the motions, not showing any sense of urgency. it's stuff you want to change, but not always the case, especially when you're going up against an opponent that you know you're better than. It's hard to always give it 100%. Been there, done that, seen it as a coach. It happens. They were able to respond, and it was a wonderful night, not just because of the victory, but it was also Pediatric Cancer Awareness Night. Wilson Minithon was there. They actually did a gold yellow out. That's the color of pediatric cancer awareness. And the child associated with the school district and the Minithon was there. It was just fun time all around. It was nice to see the football team get involved and support the Minithon and the Four Diamonds Fund.
Yeah, and I know on Friday at school they had an assembly to kind of kick off kind of the Minithon year almost, kind of involved the whole school. The people behind the scenes have been working on it, pretty much since last year. But to kind of kick it off with the rest of the student body, they had an assembly with one of the guys who got it, kind of got the ball rolling on some other fundraisers. And I believe he used to coach at Cedar Crest. He now is one of the coordinators at Lebanon Valley. And his son, I believe, passed away a few years ago from pediatric cancer. What he had was I guess back then he started, kind of like a separate little fundraiser, and in turn has gotten involved with the Four Diamonds Fund and all of those things to be able to, help, further the research and the fight and the battle against pediatric cancer. So it was a great cause. The students really rallied behind it. I think the community really rallied behind it. Minithon in general at Wilson is really seeming to take off this year. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. And last year was their first year, and their goal, I think, was to raise $10,000, and they were able to, I believe, go over 20.
Yeah, I believe
Might
so.
have been close to 25 even.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was in April last year. This year, they've actually moved it to the week before the main event at Penn State University Park campus. It's February 13th, whereas Thon is the weekend of February 20th. So they actually have less than a full year to get their part together, but I've seen it advertised a lot more.
I think wise planning, as I believe that Monday is a day off.
Oh, well, there you go. That works out well.
I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is. So, that worked out well. But yeah, the kids are really rallying behind it. It's really cool to see.
And I know their goal this year, I think, is to get to $50,000 in donation raised in year number 2, and
that'd be incredible.
Hopefully, we can support them in that capacity and spreading the word and getting as much out there as possible to get the community rallying behind. I know other high schools in the area have been doing them for a couple years now, so it's nice to see Wilson getting involved in that as well. So, congratulations to the Bulldogs on their efforts. And another win, 46-6 over McCaskey, moved to 4-0. They travel for their second league game this week to Cedar Crest before returning home in 2 weeks to host Hempfield and probably what will be their first big league test, as their Lancaster-Lebanon Section 1 victory streak is up to 44. And if they're able to get through unscathed this year, they'd set up a chance to break the record next year, which is currently held, I believe, by Manheim Central in Section 2.
I believe it's like 53.
Yeah, so 52, 53, something like that.
I lived in Lancaster County when that streak ended, actually for the majority of that streak, and I remember the headline on the Lancaster paper. Now, I don't think it was the sports section. I think it might have been the headline of the paper that day. It was like Hades frozen or something like that. Yeah, because it had been a long, long time.
Well, Wilson's streak stretches back to October 2007.
Yeah.
They lost at Manheim Township, which
is before I taught at Wilson. I came to that realization the other day. Which
is the fall after I graduated from Penn State.
Yeah.
I was the first fall that I was in Indiana.
It doesn't seem that long ago, and then just start putting all the life milestones that have happened since then, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. I had just gotten engaged. Since then, I've been married and now have a kid. Since Wilson lost the section game, and I think the game that they lost in October 2007. No, that was 2 years earlier in October 2005. Was the game where they ran that illegal play, and Coach Cantafio, because I was going to say it was 2007, but Cantafio wasn't the coach in 2007. It was Coach Doms. the 05 loss to Manheim Township at Township.
That was Dom's first year, wasn't it? Or was it his second year?
I think it was his second.
Okay,
This is his ninth.
Okay.
So, yeah, October 07 was the last time Wilson lost to a Lancaster Lebanon Section 1 foe.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. They're at 44 straight. Hope to make it 45 this Friday.
And like we mentioned last week, there are some tough games remaining. So, we obviously would love to see that streak continue, but they've got their work cut out for them. They have to take care of business this week, or that streak won't get to where they want it to be. So, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
All right, moving on a step higher. College football now, Division I, Penn State. First time they're 4-0 since 2008. And in 2008, they went on to the Rose Bowl.
I think it's James Franklin is the first Penn State coach to start his career at Penn State 4-0 since, the guy, I don't even know the name.
He's only the second person ever, second head coach in
Yeah.
Penn State history to ever start 4-0.
Which kind of makes sense, because if you think about all the factors at Penn State, but any college in general, really, whenever there's a change, it's usually either retiring, which would make sense, or because the guy before you got fired. And
that didn't happen that often.
Most of the time. Right. At Penn State, it didn't happen for a half century.
More than that.
Right. And even at most schools, if you're getting fired, it's because you're underperforming in certain areas. Generally on the field is one of them. So, it would make sense if they didn't go 4-0 to start the next season. So, it's a great start for them, but it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of keep this momentum going. I get really excited about 4-0, but I had kind of pegged them for 3-1 at this point. So, yes, I'm really excited, but the games only one of the games that they've played so far is one of the ones that I consider a loss, And then, after last week, I was thinking, oh, Indiana, maybe that's, not as scary as it originally
looked. And then they upset Missouri.
And then they look really good against Missouri. Who kind of took it to UCF the week before.
There are a couple big games left, obviously. Probably the biggest games of the year. UCF not looking as strong, and we squeaked out a victory in week 1 against them. Struggled, but got the victory in week 2 over Akron. Struggled, got the victory at Rutgers. And this week, there were some struggles, but it looked like the most complete game.
Yeah.
That wasn't in doubt at any time, beating UMass 48-6. They obviously didn't belong on the same field. They didn't have that kind of talent, that exact same coaching, the exact same atmosphere. They didn't have anything like that. But Penn State's 4-0 again, first time since 2008, and they got another one. This is their first. Well, it's not their first Big Ten test with Rutgers being that part of it, but now you're back in the Big Ten slate of games. Northwestern, you never can take them lightly, though they're not having a great year. But it is homecoming, right. So you would expect Penn State to get to 5-0, have 2 weeks leading up to a big one in Ann Arbor, though Michigan, not nearly as strong as people thought.
Going into Ann Arbor, you got to think that they're going to kind of rally the troops there, don't you? I mean, one of two things is going to happen in Ann Arbor, and obviously, I don't think that's really going to be far in between. I think they're going to rally and kind of play well, because I was talking to someone today, actually, friend of the show, and at one time a guest, Dennis, and I said, they were basically saying that they think Brady Hoke is gone. And I said, obviously the writing's on the wall. I would think he'd be gone too. However, I said, if they win out, he keeps his job, no question.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
that means
if they beat 10-2,
it
would mean they beat Penn State at Michigan, which is something that a couple writers have said that that's a must-win game because of Michigan had dominated Penn State and now seems, over the last recent history, has seemed to struggle a little bit with Penn State. When they shouldn't, like last year, specifically.
Right, yeah.
So that was one game. So, okay, that's still, maybe a little bit more of a toss-up. Going to Michigan, though, with their backs against the wall, that's still a tough one. But I think if Michigan, if he beats Penn State and they win, the majority of the game and they beat Ohio State at the end, Brady Hoke's not fired. If they beat Ohio State and have a decent season, even if they lose one more, if they go 9-3, but one of those wins is Ohio State,
I was going to say
his job.
Even 8-4 and they beat Ohio State.
Right, and if they have this lull in the middle, the only question I have is if the lull is too deep. Like if they lose, another game and then to Penn State.
I don't know. Who they play this
I don't know
week.
either. And I don't know if they have a bye going into Penn State. So they may have 2 more games before Penn State. I don't know. But if that's the case, if they're at 4 losses on Columbus Day, I'm not sure Brady Hoke makes it to the Ohio State game.
Right.
That you don't see
they
that
do.
a lot.
They have 2 games. They play host Minnesota this Saturday and then travel to Rutgers for a primetime game before hosting Penn State in a primetime game.
Typically, you would say, okay, that's that should be 2 wins for Michigan. But the way they've played the last
essentially
2 weeks,
I think the only
3 weeks,
they have to beat Minnesota and Rutgers.
Yeah, and let's be honest. This is just a quick side note. Man, they threw Rutgers a bone this year. They get primetime games at home against Penn State and Michigan. That's awesome. I mean, I understand they're new. You want to build up and hype those games, but man, that's kind of cool for them.
But they have to beat Minnesota. They have to beat Rutgers. Penn State can be either a winner or a loss. I think Michigan State can either be a winner or a loss. But if they lose both of those, they absolutely have to beat Ohio State.
Right, and look at that run there at the end. They play Penn State, all right, and
they
then
get a bye before Michigan State.
Right, so they play Penn State, toss up. They play Michigan State, probably a loss. All right, so that gets them to 3 losses.
It's on the road.
Let's give Michigan. I know this is a Penn State segment, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt at home.
They beat Minnesota, Rutgers, and Penn State.
Right. Okay. Which this isn't the Penn State argument right now.
5-2.
Right. So then Michigan State 5-3.
I'd say probably a loss.
Indiana.
It's at home.
Right.
That's good for them.
Yeah, but if it's the Indiana, if Indiana's anything like they were this past week and not like last week, I'd have to go with Indiana on that.
We'll say toss-up.
Okay, so toss-up.
And they should beat Northwestern and Maryland.
But then Ohio State, I just don't see how they can beat Ohio State. I just don't see it.
Essentially,
they could have
if
5
they lose
6 losses.
If they beat Minnesota and Rutgers, but lose to Penn State, Michigan State, and Indiana, is Hoke fired after the Indiana loss?
Penn State, Michigan State, Indiana in a row?
3 in a row.
See, this is where it's touchy. If he was an NFL coach, yes, he'd be fired immediately.
You think they'll wait until
college? I don't know that you do because let's be honest, no one on that staff. The offense is still terrible, so you're not hiring the coordinators. The defense is terrible, so they're not going to hire the defensive coordinator. Sometimes
so there's no one to step in, essentially.
Right. So I don't see why they would.
So he's a lame duck. He's just going to finish the season.
Unless there's donors who know who they're going after. They can run
it less miles again.
Well, I was going to say. If the Niners are tanking, you go after Harbaugh. I don't know that Harbaugh wants to come.
After seeing what's happened there since Carr left?
I don't know.
What have they done?
I know.
Who are they?
And look, we talk about this all the time. Like, you go to the 49ers, Harbaugh could go somewhere else and be, you're revered if you're as a good NFL coach. If he went to Michigan and turned the program back around and beat Ohio State,
beloved,
he'd be a hero. He'd be a legend there. Although there's all those reports that he kind of feels spurned by them because he wasn't really. They weren't real interested in him
until it was
earlier
success.
On, right?
But that's the way it always works.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I buy that.
Back to Penn State. Potential to get some momentum going here, but the games I'm most concerned about are still the ones that yet to come. They won one game that I thought they were going to lose. So there's still a lot of football left, and that's what I kind of said. I pegged them at 7-5, and some people, listener Bill, were giving me a hard time for that. And I understand, right? And now sitting at 4-0, yeah, I'd be disappointed if they ended 7-5.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Especially if next week we're saying they're 5-0.
Well, I know,
Could you imagine
them
going 2-5 in their final slate
we mentioned it last week. While I don't want that to happen, I'm just saying the only games I look at left that I would say are absolute, not even absolute, that I'm really confident that they'll win.
Maryland.
Right? Maryland at home, and Maryland actually looks like they might have turned the corner and are actually
decent. Offensively.
Right. So
Temple.
Maryland, Temple, Illinois.
Temple doesn't look that bad.
No, Temple doesn't look that bad. Oh, except their good games have come against really bad teams.
Vanderbilt. Ouch.
UMass should have beat Vanderbilt. Like, they missed a 30-yard field goal. So I mean, let's just look at it. All right, I know we did this at the beginning of the season. They're 4-0. Northwestern, they should win 5-0. Michigan, I'm still pegging them for a loss.
But at this point now, I'm looking at it.
They should win. I'm going to be disappointed.
You have to beat Michigan now. Like, you go to 5-0 against a Michigan team that looked like that against Utah,
right?
And got crushed by Notre Dame. And you have to beat Michigan now.
Right. And that's the thing. When was the last Penn State team that had expectations? It's been a few
2008.
years. It's been a few years.
2008.
This team is building expectations. Which is good. It's good for the program to have.
And also, I'll say it again,
it's healthy,
that they're young. Like this team, as you see it now, is essentially back next year.
It's unreal. Which is exciting.
There's I think we did this a couple weeks ago. There's one gone on offense, which is 2 running backs, but you're not playing both at the same time. Belton and Swinack are gone. That's it. Everyone else on the offense is back.
So there's rumors that Miles Diefenbach could be back by the end of the season. Do you
Why?
bring him back, or
No.
do you medical redshirt him
it's
and bring him back
up to him,
next year?
obviously.
I know.
If he wants to, move on, fine.
Right.
But why bring him back?
Right.
I
know.
say let him recover.
Let him anchor the line next year.
Right, and come back and throw him in there then. A guy that has already started, was supposed to start this year. He'd get I don't know. That's one of those things that you, as a fan,
And if he wanted to go and kind of capitalize, because he was thought of to be probably the second best lineman on the team, to Smith.
Yeah,
and
because
some
of
would
the
argue
position.
Right.
Diefenbach's probably the better lineman, but he doesn't play left tackle.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, you can look at that a couple ways. However, if he wanted to kind of cash in on that, and try his hand at making the NFL and making a roster there, I certainly wouldn't blame him, especially after an injury where you lose a year.
As a fan in me, though,
as a Penn State fan, I want him to redshirt and come back next year.
Because next year, I mean, if this Penn State team, even if they finish 8-4, which I think is what I said they would do, if they'd finish 8-4 with basically everyone coming back and a good recruiting class in O'Brien's last year, which was held together and improved with Franklin, and an incredible class from Franklin upcoming, Penn State is working back up. I mean, I saw an article published that said they'd be one of the next 10 great teams of the next 5 or 10 years or whatever. This coming from the same media publications that said that Penn State wouldn't be. I don't even know if it was
Penn
ESPN.
State football wouldn't
Penn
exist
State
in 10
football
years.
wouldn't exist, or they wouldn't be back until 2020 or whatever. But I look at this now. You have to beat Northwestern, and now I'm looking at you should beat Michigan.
Absolutely, they should.
It's
I'm just
still
telling
a
you, I don't
toss-up,
think
but
they
I
do.
lean Penn State. Ohio State, even though they're probably down this year, that's a tough game. But you get them at home.
So let's say 6-1 after Ohio State.
Then you beat Maryland. You have to.
7-1.
It's at home.
At Indiana, I think they lose.
I know
7-2.
it's tough. It's tough to look at this, but at the beginning of the season, we were wondering in the first 5 games, were they going to be 5-0, 4-1, 3-2?
9-3 would be nice right now.
9-3 would be great.
Honestly, 8-4 would be a little disappointing.
After starting 4-0, yeah.
After starting 4-0,
4-4.
But again, at the beginning of the year, I pegged them for 7-5. 8-4, I'd be thrilled.
Right, because you got to always look back. What did you think at the beginning of the year? Right now, I said 8-4. At 4-4, they split the next 8.
Also,
fine.
let's be honest. If we see the Big Ten of 2 weeks ago, yeah, 8-4, I'm going to kind of be disappointed.
Right.
If we see the Big Ten from this past week, they make 8-4, I'd be kind of happy. If we lose to Indiana, but they win a bunch of the rest of their games, okay, they had a rough start, but they got things going.
If you go, what if they do go 6-0 with the win at Michigan, have that week off, but they finish 9-3?
So they beat Michigan. If they lose,
and
to
then
Ohio
they probably
State,
lose to Ohio State, Indiana, and Michigan State.
I'm really happy with that.
Even
season.
though they started 6-0.
Yeah.
Me in August having them go 9-3, I'm ecstatic.
I'd still be really happy
because
you know where 9-3 is going to get you? A New Year's Day bowl, probably.
Right, and you know what 9-3 a year from now is going to be? 11-1,
right.
and a Big Ten championship game appearance probably.
Right.
That's what I'm looking at here. 8-4. Say you're 10-2 next year. That's probably close to a Big Ten championship game, but because of the division you're in, you're probably not the representative. You get to 9-3. I'm thinking 11-1 next year.
So, another side note.
2 games
I know
better.
This is just more stuff you love to talk about. I saw someone say if Penn State wins the next 2 weeks, they win this week coming up and then their game in another 2 weeks. So if they win their next 2 games
in the next 3
weeks, 6-0
weeks,
going into Ohio State, and Ohio State doesn't lose again, is game day at Penn State that night. And what dynamic would that be?
I don't think they can. I absolutely do not think they can go. I honestly...
I think it would be
I would be terrified for their safety.
There are a couple other big games that week. Because I think they addressed this on Black Shoe Diaries. I think they did. But isn't that just fun to think about? Isn't that fun to... I'm not saying fun to think about, oh, yay, they should come. I'm just saying, just think about what that looks like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that get your head spinning a little bit?
I
All right, let's see here. So, South Carolina, Auburn
South
would be a big
Carolina,
one.
Auburn.
Michigan State.
Yeah, but with
that's
Michigan
tough.
struggling,
Ole Miss, LSU. That was LSU losing kind
That
of hurts
takes
that
that,
one a little
yeah.
bit. Those are
If Penn State is
6-0.
6-0, and Ohio State would be what, 6-1 or? Cincinnati, Maryland, Rutgers. Yeah, they'd be 5-1 against 6-0. They'd be ranked top 15. Penn State should be top 25. We're 27th in both polls now. I just cannot wait to see them crack the top 25.
Isn't that just an interesting thing to think about, though? The possibility of that happening. I don't think it's a good idea.
I don't think it's a good idea. No, but then again, when will it be a good idea? Ever? Because even if the Penn Staters get back everything that was taken away from them, so when you're keeping this a football-focused discussion.
Here's the thing. You know ESPN's got to be hoping that there's another those other matchups, that there's at least another big matchup on the schedule. Because if there's only one clear big matchup, and that's dependent on Penn State and Ohio State doing their job to get there too.
Ohio State's got to win 3 that they should win.
If Penn State were to lose to Michigan,
it wouldn't matter.
Then they've got an easy out there. And there's probably is a bigger game on the schedule at that point.
But Penn State at 6-0, hosting Ohio State 5-1.
After the drubbing last year.
Right, after the beatdown that happened in Columbus. Franklin's first year, starting out probably the best in Penn State history, first-year head coach, with all the recruiting between the coaches, Urban Meyer and James Franklin haven't exactly exchanged pleasantries. Not that they've been brutal with each other, but they haven't really acknowledged each other.
Right.
And after everything that happened, Penn State being bowl eligible and eligible for the Big Ten title, like if one of those other matchups, like we already said, the LSU matchup kind of went in the tank because of their loss. What was the other one? Ole Miss, South Carolina, was that it?
I think it was Ole Miss, LSU, and then it was South Carolina, Auburn.
Oh,
that's got
South
the
Carolina,
potential.
Auburn is probably a big one. But if either one of those loses before then,
right? And if Auburn is undefeated, aren't they going to hold out for the Auburn Alabama game a couple weeks after that?
You would think so, because do they have something where they don't like to go to the same campus twice, right?
I would think, and I don't know where that game's at, though. It might be at Alabama. I don't know. Anyway, it was just an interesting question that I saw pop up.
Well,
there's a lot of things that have to fall into place for that to happen, but I thought, it would be interesting if they had it there, and
honestly,
and no one showed up.
They'll get probably crap for it from Penn State and maybe even Ohio State, although it's at the Penn State campus, so it's a bigger deal. If it plays out the way we want it to, 6-0 Penn State, 5-1 Ohio State at Happy Valley in prime time, even if the other SEC games, because they're both SEC games, where else are they going to go? Even if they don't look as good, I don't think there's any way ESPN management sends them to Penn State. No way. Not at all. I'll say it right now. Game day is not going to Penn State.
Just for the record.
They should fear for their lives.
Just for the record, we're going to be there that day.
I wasn't going to brush through that, but they should fear for their lives.
I have a feeling that Joey might be like, we're leaving at 5 in the morning for an 8 o'clock.
I want to get there when they start airing. I will have signs.
Lots of signs.
That's the thing. I honestly don't know that they could transmit what's going to be happening in the background with the signs and the profanities and the gestures. I honestly don't. I don't think that they could broadcast.
This is
do
why
you
I
disagree?
Brought it up. No, I think it's a terrible idea to go.
I
think they could go back to Fargo would be a better option.
ESPN is not welcome at Penn State. Most national sports media is not welcome at Penn State.
Right.
For obvious reasons that we don't have to discuss with our listenership, because I know they all understand. People that are maybe picking this up and have no idea, because they just listen to these idiots in the sports media. But there's no way ESPN and their blowhards should go there. No way. Not at all. Like, it would be a bad idea.
The analogy that keeps coming to mind is just like it's a train wreck that I wouldn't be able to not watch.
Oh, I would watch. I would be laughing the whole time. I would never join in with any of that kind of stuff. I might say some things, but I'm not going to, throw things or, get really as brutal as I would like.
Right.
But, I would stand there and just watch it. Just like some people just want to watch the world burn.
I was just gonna say that.
And I would just watch it. They would tip over their trucks. Like if you would see an ESPN truck roll through, what do you think would happen?
And here's the thing, I don't know what they would do. I think some of them would be excited to have them back there.
I do. I agree with that because kind of jumping on
I think it would be mixed. I think it would be mixed. I think it would be a lot of excitement because that is a huge game, and there'd be a lot of excitement for the moving forward kind of aspect of it. But to think that that it would be incident-free...
I think the mob mentality would take over.
I think incident-free is also a foolish assumption.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Although that probably could be said when they go anywhere, anytime, because, anytime you're picking between college football programs, there's always going to be animosity.
Right.
But I just think because of the way that they handle
situations, which every week, which can get at. When they go to that Florida-Georgia game some years, and they've been tailgating for 2 days,
largest cocktail party in the world.
Yeah. It's funny how they're not allowed to use that anymore.
I know.
But everybody still uses it. It's kind of like Candlestick Park. But go.
Anyway, we got to run through these NFL games now for the second straight week. We've been sidetracked by Penn State football.
I love having good topics that sidetrack us. Trust me, if on the 26th of October, if the 25th doesn't go so hot, 26th, we'll get to NFL scores.
We're not even having a show that weekend. So, all right, NFL this week. It started off on a sour note. If you were interested in watching good football,
I'll make up time here.
Thursday night, the Falcons destroyed the Buccaneers 56-14. That was ugly. The Bucs made
it wasn't that close. Wasn't that close?
Yeah, they weren't. So the Falcons improved to 2-1. Bucs dropped to 0-3. Today, I said thrilling game in Foxborough. Maybe a bit of a surprise at Gillette, where the Raiders were actually driving down to try to tie the game against New England with like a minute to play, and Derek Carr whipped it and passed to Daenerys Moore that he should have caught. Bounced off his chest, bounced off a Patriots defender, and fat old Vince Wilfork picked it off.
Fat man interception.
Gotta love it. So Patriots are able to hang on, improved to 2-1. The Jaguars absolutely got decimated by the Colts. It wasn't that close, 44-17, and that is just making him look good as they actually traded scores in the fourth quarter, 14 apiece there. But the Colts were up 30-0 at halftime. Andrew Luck looked great. The Jaguars looked terrible. Despite it not really being his fault at all, they benched Chad Henne and went with Bortles, and have already announced that Bortles will start next week. So there's that.
So I missed the part where Bortles is going to play defense. Apparently.
Yeah, it's kind of what I wanted to ask. I was like, okay, so I guess...
Who do they play next week? Probably somebody terrible.
I don't know. I guess just that's what the fans want to see, but Chad Henne didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't barely had any chance to do anything because they yanked him pretty early, and exactly how many points did he give up? So, obviously we're bitter and biased, but I don't understand how giving up 44 points means you need to change the quarterback. But
44 points this week, 40-some points last week, and 34 the week before.
A huge letdown against the Eagles in the week one. Elsewhere, NFC North, Justin and I talked about this before the show started. The NFC North is not very good.
No. The Lions are underachieving. Got exposed last week when they played
the Panthers,
who we don't necessarily see eye to eye on, but we still say they're a decent team.
Right.
And they have a good defense, but they took it to the Lions
last week. Beat up on the Lions.
So, Lions at home against the Packers, who have a terrible defense.
Held them to 7 points.
Yeah. Packers are terrible. Lions are not that
just
much
a little bit better, and the Bears are probably just a little bit better than that, I'm guessing.
Right. And
then there's the Vikings, who now Matt Castle is out for an extended period with a broken foot, so Teddy Bridgewater will be taking over there.
Why wasn't Teddy Bridgewater the quarterback anyway?
But the Lions are able to put up 19 points, beat the Packers 19-7. The Packers, that's their second loss, one of them being the Seahawks on opening night. Fine, that's okay, but they had to scratch and claw their way to beat the Jets last week and actually be handed the game, according to some people, on I think a missed review or a phantom penalty or something.
a coach was calling
timeout,
for a timeout, but it wasn't
yes.
the head coach.
Right, and only the head coach can call a timeout, and they gave it to the coordinator.
Because the ref isn't looking. They just hear somebody on the sideline yelling, timeout, timeout, timeout.
Yeah,
You see somebody
I think
running
it was the Jets' offensive coordinator wanted the timeout. He's yelling at Rex Ryan to call it. The refs called the play dead, but the snap had already was about to start.
Right.
They threw a slant that went for like a huge touchdown to take the lead, and then it gets called back because they say he called the timeout.
Right, which is completely, it's kind of crap to begin with, because they granted them the timeout, which they were asking for. They still had the ball. It's not like they were like, oh, you ran an incomplete pass, we're taking your timeout, but you also lose the ball. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like the Eagles playing the Cowboys when I was a kid, and Emmitt Smith runs on 4th and 1. They're like, oh, wait, it should have been the 2-minute warning. You get to run it again, and then the Eagles stop him again. That's for our listener, Bill, too. I'm sure I'm going to... Well, actually, I don't know for sure, because I know he had some things going on today. But, anyway, yeah, like, the Jets kind of handed them that game. But the Packers, we said at the beginning of the season, we thought they're taking a step back. And honestly, from the things we've seen so far, their game against the Seahawks wasn't that close. They lost last week, and they lost this week. They won last week, but should have lost.
The Packers won.
Right, so they're 1-2, should be 0-3.
Yeah, the Lions are 2-1. The Bears play tomorrow night against the Jets, and the Vikings lost today to the Saints 20-9.
But again, Saints not impressive.
Not impressive
at all.
After last week, I wanted to say, I don't know if I did, that of all the 0-2 teams, I'm not worried about the Saints. Like, you go to Cleveland, and then
I was least worried, and it hadn't happened yet.
The Colts.
But on Tuesday morning, so like Tuesday morning quarterback, 0-2 teams, the Colts were by far the team I was least worried about.
Yeah, I could see that.
Essentially because of their division.
Yeah, really. I mean, after what's happened to the other teams.
Right, and this week, if the Colts hadn't played yet, I would still be like, okay, just the way their division is playing, I'd be like, that's like a win. Just watching the other three AFC South teams play every week is like a Colts win, essentially.
The Falcons are 2-1 now. The Saints are the Saints are 1-2, getting their first victory, but I'm not so sure that the Falcons aren't better than the Saints. They beat them once now. It was in Atlanta, but could the Saints be an 8-8 team?
Right. And think about the Falcons lost last week to the
Bengals,
Cincinnati, who looks really good.
The Bengals may be the best team in the league right now.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people say Seattle, but then you got to give props to the Chargers, who won again today.
Right. And
there's interesting dynamic
game
out there.
Coming east,
I know. I took the Bills because I thought no way. Not to say the Chargers were bad, but early game coming east, just like you said.
I was really close to calling you and changing my pick this morning to the Bills, and I didn't.
I'm glad you didn't.
And I'm glad I didn't.
So speaking of the Bengals, they won today easily, 33-7. They're clicking on offense and defense, and at times special teams. They got a hard one out of the way at Baltimore last week. They got the win there. They look good. I think that Cincinnati, they got to win playoff games, but they have something going there. Right. And we'll see where it takes them from there. This is a game that I think is a huge statement because this is a game that in years past they lose. They come off of an emotional game against Baltimore, and then they'll lay an egg. I know last year or a couple years ago against the Dolphins, maybe actually think the last two times they played, the Bengals have been decent, pushing for the playoffs, and the Dolphins beat them, and they were nowhere near the caliber. They just let one slip away. I could see that happening today against Tennessee. Cincinnati didn't let it happen.
And the way they're winning, they're dominating. They won in Baltimore where they never win. I forget who. The Bengals beat the Falcons last week, who have put up a lot of points the weeks they haven't played the Bengals, and they defense really played well last week, and the offense too, and then they dominate the Titans today. They look really good.
Yeah. And elsewhere, and speaking of the Bengals in their AFC North division, Steelers play tonight, but the Ravens and Browns got together in a thriller, and the Browns actually had the tables reversed on them, whereas last week they were the ones driving down the field to kick the game-winning field goal against the Saints. The Ravens did it to them today on a Flacco to Smith big gain, and then they just lined it up for Tucker to boot it through. And I feel like in Cleveland you should be happy with the way things are going. You had near misses with Pittsburgh and Baltimore, but you got to win those games to be considered an up-and-coming team.
And your win against the Saints, okay, that's great. what are the Saints?
They could be 3-0 or 0-3.
Right. But at the same time, depending on how they look tonight, the Steelers play tonight, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
against the Panthers.
If the Steelers lose to the Panthers tonight, you might have called it. Are the Steelers the worst? I know they beat the Browns head-to-head. They probably shouldn't have.
Right.
Actually, they
should have because they were
up huge, but they got lucky to kind of squeak it out. Let me take that back a step. It's probably not close enough to really make that distinction yet, but if Pittsburgh struggles tonight against the Panthers, which I don't know that they will.
It's on the road in Carolina.
If they do, I think that's a step closer to your prediction being right
5-11
than mine being right.
Yeah, I had the Steelers at 5-11.
I think I had them at 8.
The Browns at 6-10. I think the Ravens at 8-8, 9-7, and then the Bengals I think are 11-5. So we'll see. It's still early. I know another week or two we'll know more, but that's the way the AFC North is shaping up. The Giants got their first win today against the Texans team that looked a little disinterested. I think Coach Bill O'Brien had said, "Is this a trap game for us?" Well, he was asking that question. I guess it was because they looked bad. The defense did not look as dominant as they had the first few weeks of the season.
They gave up 30 points to a Giants offense that
hadn't done anything.
Right.
Yeah, it looked terrible the first 2 weeks of the season. Then 2 exciting games involving 3 of the 4 NFC East teams. The Giants got a win today, as did the Cowboys. They came back. Their largest regulation deficit ever was overcome today. They were never down by more than 21 points and won in regulation, and they did it today. They were actually losing 21-0 to the Rams. They stormed back and won 34-31. And while this probably gives it away to some extent, according to Numbers Never Lie, since 2006, the most fourth-quarter comeback drives have been led by
Tony Romo.
21. 1 more than Peyton Manning, 2 more than Eli Manning, and 4 more than both Jay Cutler and Matt Ryan.
Yeah, you know why? Because Tony Romo puts his team in a position
I
in the fourth quarter.
I knew there'd be something there.
You knew I wasn't. That perfect example of you can make a stat say anything you want. I was aware that he was near the top of the list ahead of time, and he is better than advertised in the fourth quarter. Most people, I think, if we wouldn't read it right there, most people wouldn't get that. However, because of Tony Romo on the Cowboys, I'm sticking with it because he puts him in a bad position.
I understand it. And
you knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming, but I felt like I had to say it anyway. The other NFC
I have
teams,
to give them credit. The Cowboys are playing better than I thought they were. They still gave up 31 points to the Rams
with a third-string quarterback
whose offense is terrible.
I almost picked St. Louis today because, just like the Bengals, the Cowboys had a big win last week against Tennessee after getting lit up the first week, and I was like, this is a game that they'll go on the road and lose, that they shouldn't lose to a third-string quarterback. And when they're up 21-0, I was like, I should have taken St. Louis. Now I'm glad I stuck with Dallas because they came out on top. But their other rivals met in Philly today. Redskins traveled, played the Eagles. That was a barn burner.
Game.
It featured a huge pass to Deshaun Jackson that I heard he had a welcoming reception from the Eagles fans, and also Nick Foles getting beat around that led to a fight on the field. I was kind of hoping
Deshaun Jackson was going to go in for what appeared to be the game-winning score, but he dropped the ball and it rolled out the end zone before, and they review it, and instead of it being the winning touchdown,
it's a touchback.
Eagles kneel it out to win it. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but I kind of
did. But the Eagles end up winning 37-34. Cousins looked good for the Redskins. So he did what he needed to do. I think what both teams need to focus on is that neither defense is any good.
Right. Well, see, I'm not ready to give up on the Eagles' defense yet. I think Kirk Cousins. I actually thought of this on the way over here. Kirk Cousins. I know everybody's jumping on this bandwagon. I'm not saying he's a franchise quarterback. I don't know, but I'm saying he certainly over the last year and a half has played better than RG3.
He looked good on my fantasy bench.
Let's say, I don't even know. Let's just put a number on it. Let's say they go 3-3 or 4-2. Wow.
Well, how long is RG3 out?
I don't know. I was just putting 6 weeks just to kind of put it out there. If they go 4-2 in that time, now that would mean they have to go 4-1 the rest of the time, which I don't know that that's going to happen. But let's just remove that from it. What would Kirk Cousins have to do for the talk to be, oh, we should trade Kirk Cousins to, oh, we should trade Robert Griffin III?
I think it's already there in some circles now. I'm not sure.
It popped in my head. So it's absolutely. If it popped into my head, I absolutely feel like there has to be at least some.
There always
sect
be
of the
something
Redskins
to some
fans
people
that want to do that,
thinking that the real
backup
Robert Griffin
quarterback
is the first season,
right?
Not the second season, not all the injuries, not the start of this year. But how long do you wait? Like,
Right.
But look at all the stuff you gave to the Rams. Now the Rams aren't doing anything
Right.
with it apparently, but. Like, when do you just say, okay, we need to move on, let's get rid of Griffin? And who's going to take him with the injuries?
Right.
And without seeing an audition? You essentially, we talk about this all the time, you need your players to play well so you can trade them, but then if they're playing well, you don't want to trade them, or your fans don't want you to trade them. So if Griffin comes back and is tearing up, are you like, all right, let's trade him? It's an interesting conundrum.
I think it's a possibility because the coaches there are not the coaches that took him.
Right. No, you're absolutely right there. Moving on, Chargers beat the Bills cross country. We mentioned it, 22-10.
Big win for the Chargers.
Huge win for the Chargers after an emotional, aggressive victory last week
talk
against
about
the
trap
Seahawks.
games. I say it's hard to say a trap game when you're traveling cross country to play an undefeated team, but easily a game that I feel like the Chargers, the last decade, they lose this game to the Bills.
Yeah, I agree.
On the other hand, is it the Bills being the Bills? I don't know.
Honestly, I think that Denver should be somewhat concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, not to say that Denver isn't the team to beat in the AFC West, but the Chargers could easily be 3-0 right now. Minor letdown Arizona opening Monday night that they probably should have won.
Right. And Arizona's looking to be pretty
Arizona's not too bad.
Good.
They beat the Seahawks. They beat the Bills. So just watch out for San Diego. We both thought they'd be good and challenging for a wild card spot. So we're looking pretty good on that. A couple other picks, maybe not so much. But San Diego, we're all up on. We mentioned Falcons-Bucks. Monday night game is Bears at Jets. I think that could be a trap game for the Bears because of their emotional victory over the 49ers, the comeback last week. The Jets feeling mad about their loss to the Packers. I think the Jets being at home could upset the Bears, and then you look at the NFC North and go, what?
Yeah. So, could be interesting. I think the winner of that game has got to be feeling pretty good about themselves. The Jets, they get to 2-1. They got to look around and be like, well, the Dolphins don't look that great.
Tied with the Bills.
Bills lost the game.
Tied with the Patriots.
Where they could have made a statement. And the Patriots lost to the Dolphins and haven't looked that impressive.
It's a toss-up.
But on the other hand, the Bears can do the same. If they win, they can look around their division and be like, we're 2-1, and no one else is really scaring me in the division.
Right. I mean, Detroit's 2-1 as well, but they get them all meet soon.
Right.
So, Steelers-Panthers we mentioned tonight. Pittsburgh travels to Carolina. I think it's a bigger game for Pittsburgh. They probably need this win.
Yep.
But if the Panthers can get to 3-0 with a rebuilt wide receiving core,
be at first place
and Cam Newton sitting out the first week and still recovering from some injuries, then you look, say, is New Orleans the third best team in that division?
This is a game where the Panthers want to be a contender, not just an NFC South contender, but an actual
they need to win this
NFC and Super Bowl contender. This is a game they need to make statements at home against the Steelers, who have struggled the first couple weeks. They need to win this game if they want to make a statement.
The 3 late games are all winding down. One actually has gone final. In Miami, Kansas City is up 27-15 at the 2-minute warning. Kansas City has the ball, so unless something crazy happens, the Chiefs will get their first win of the year, move to 1-2, and the Dolphins, after their opening week victory of the Patriots, will drop to 1-2, losing to 2 teams that I don't think are any good. I'm not going to give the Bills much credit.
Who did you pick in this game? Did you pick Dolphins?
I think I did, and now I'm kicking myself over it. You know what the main reason was? Because I thought they'd stop the backup running back Niall Davis. If Charles was going to play, I was going to go KC, but because he didn't, I thought Miami would be able to do it, which is stupid because Miami's missing 5 defensive starters. So why do I think these things? They don't have a single starting linebacker. They're missing a starting defensive end, and they're missing a starting safety.
It's pretty bad when your team has more injuries than the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are pretty
the Chiefs are known for their injuries, yes. Then the Broncos-Seahawks is getting interesting. The Broncos have cut it to 17-12, so they're down by 5. 2:25 to play in Seattle. Denver has the ball, and with Peyton Manning, anything is possible, though that offense has been contained by Seattle. I have seen some questions about the officiating, maybe not calling it as the way the league is supposed to call it. Multiple former players and analysts have been saying that the Seahawks cornerbacks have been getting away with much more than they should have been getting away with.
Which is interesting when that's a point of emphasis.
Right, that's what right, exactly. That was supposed to be called more often. Apparently, at least in this game, maybe not the case. So I don't know if that'll become, more of a big deal or what.
In the long run, that may be a bigger victory, regardless of the outcome of the score of this game. If it brings attention to those things, that alone may help Denver more in the long run than a win in this game.
Right. So we'll see what happens there. Denver does have the ball down 5 with about 2.5 minutes to play. Perhaps, maybe a shock to some people. Me, not.
Yeah, you were right on this one, too.
49ers
3 weeks in,
went to Arizona, and Arizona comes away with the victory. They beat the 49ers 23-14. Now, unfortunately, because of the 49ers falling apart last week against Chicago, I did pick the 49ers to rebound in this game with Arizona having the backup quarterback and everything.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things now, I feel like this is the 49ers meltdown that I alluded to at the beginning of the year.
And I think Harbaugh is a really good, kind of, let's build a lot of momentum. I see him kind of...
I don't know if he's going to be good in crisis like this.
Right.
So, the 49ers are now 1-2, while the Cardinals are 3-0. The Cardinals are in first in the AFC West, with huge games coming up against Seattle.
Right. I don't know if an interception or something just happened. But...
Yeah, I'm not sure what just happened in the Seattle-Denver game, but Seattle just got the ball back with just over 2 minutes to play. Yes, it was. Manning was intercepted by Cam Chancellor. That probably will seal the game because the Seahawks are essentially in field goal territory. Right. So it looks like Seattle will come away in the Super Bowl rematch and beat the Broncos. Yeah. So we do have a text here from Bill. It has nothing to do with you making fun of the Cowboys or anything like that. He asks about what are the surprise teams and who's doing better than expected, and questions along those lines, though. We don't have enough time to answer it, and I don't know if I'm ready to answer that after 3 weeks. I mentioned 4 weeks is kind of my benchmark to know who we have and how good they are. So I think that's a question that we will definitely address next week once a majority of the teams have finished their 4th game of the season. So we'll go over who's meeting our expectations, who's above them, who's below them, who are the surprise teams and the disappointing teams. We kind of threw a few out of here tonight, so it's probably pretty easy to see where we'd be going with this.
Do bye weeks start next week?
They might. If it's not next week, it's the following week.
Okay.
So, all right. Any shout-outs or anything to say this week on the episodes?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So, just trying to double-check here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Don't want to forget people. That's never any good. I think we're good here. I don't think I have anything to mention off the top of my head. I can't think of anything. So we're just gonna end it here. Thanks for joining us. That wraps up the 149th episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
We hope you tune in every Sunday evening at 6:30 for our take on sports. Until next time, I'm J-Raff.
And I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Don't forget, you can download each episode of the show from the podcast section of the iTunes Store. We'll see you next time, and thanks again for listening.